We tell stories of human. Way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. In the end, what's HFI without? Humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name is Amir Sohal. Let's begin. The classroom was unusually quiet that morning. Rows of alien students sat at long tables, their strange hand holding tools and metal pieces, ready for today's lesson. The walls glowed faintly, reflecting the pale light of the twin suns outside. The teacher, a tall figure with many arms, moved slowly in front of class. His voice was calm but firm. "Today, you will forge a blade," he announced. "A weapon of skill, precision, and strength. Only those who understand the art of creation will succeed." Whispers filled the room. Many students looked at each other with excitement. Forging was a challenge. Few had mastered it. Most students were confident. They had practiced for months, honing their strength, speed, and control. In the corner, a small human girl sat quietly. Her hair was messy, and her hands were unremarkable compared to the alien students with sharp claws and reinforced arms. She seemed fragile. She looked down at the table, her brown eyes focused, calm, almost too calm. The aliens barely noticed her. To them, she was insignificant, just another weak human in a class full of extraordinary beings. The teacher walked to the front table and picked up a piece of glowing metal. "Watch closely," he said, demonstrating the technique. Sparks flew as the metal bent, shaped by heat and pressure. The students leaned forward, trying to memorize every move. One by one, the alien students began forging. Their blades were strong, sleek, and sharp. Some were huge, others delicate but precise. The room buzzed with energy. Hammers struck anvils, metal hissed under heat, and sparks danced in the air. The human girl did not touch the metal. She stared at the table, her mind moving fast. She picked up a small piece of bone, pale and unremarkable. The other students noticed and laughed. "Is that all you have, human?" one alien sneered. "You will fail." The human girl did not answer. She simply studied the bone, turning it slowly in her hands. She noticed the curve, the density, the weight. To anyone else, it was nothing. To her, it had potential. "Waste of time," another alien whispered, shaking its head. The teacher's eyes flicked to her briefly, but he continued instructing the class. He assumed she would fail, as humans often did. Most of the class already ignored her, confident in their superiority. Hours passed. The aliens worked tirelessly, their blades taking shape. The classroom smelled of hot metal and oil. Sparks flew like stars in the dim light. The human girl worked silently, sharpening her piece of bone with careful strokes. Slowly, deliberately. She was not in a hurry. She was not afraid. The other students noticed something unusual. The bone glinted slightly in the light. A tiny spark flew from the edge as she ran a small file across it. The students exchanged confused glances. "Stop playing," one shouted. "That is not a real blade." She looked up briefly, her expression calm, almost amused. "This will be enough," she said softly. The aliens laughed again. They continued to hammer and shape, confident in their metal weapons. None of them noticed the subtle changes in the human girl's bone. They did not understand humans. The teacher called everyone to the testing table. "Now, we shall see your results," he said. The students carried their weapons, pride in their eyes. One by one, they struck the targets. Metal blades cut through wood, pierced soft metal, and left precise marks. The room buzzed with excitement. The aliens were impressed with their own skill. Finally, it was the human girl's turn. She stepped forward, holding the small, pale bone. The room went silent. Some students laughed quietly. Some shook their heads. The teacher raised an eyebrow, curious but skeptical. She placed the bone carefully on the target. With a swift movement, she struck. The bone cut through the target cleanly, leaving a perfect mark. The room gasped. Another strike. Again clean, precise, powerful. The alien stared in disbelief. The bone, so small and weak-looking, performed like a weapon of steel. The teacher stepped closer. His many eyes widened. "Impossible," he whispered. He examined the bone carefully. There was no trick, no hidden metal. It was just bone, Yet the power, the precision, was undeniable. The human girl stood quietly, her face calm. She had expected their disbelief. She had expected their underestimation. And now, she had proved them wrong. A tall alien with reinforced arms stepped forward. How? How can a human do this? It asked, voice shaking. She did not answer. She simply returned the bone to her table and sat down. The aliens continued to stare, unsure of what they had witnessed. Some felt anger, others admiration. The teacher finally spoke, his voice louder now. Today, you have learned something important. Strength is not always obvious. Skill is not always in the metal you hold. Look closer, think differently, and you may find power where you least expect it. Whispers filled the room again, this time mixed with respect. The aliens looked at her differently. No longer was she just a weak human girl. She had changed something. She had changed the way they thought about humans. The human girl smiled faintly to herself. She had done what she needed. But in her mind, this was only the beginning. She knew there would be more challenges, stronger opponents, harder tests. But she also knew that humans had something aliens could not understand. Patience, creativity, and a quiet determination that could turn the smallest thing into the most powerful weapon. As the class ended, the aliens whispered among themselves, still shocked. Some even asked the teacher quietly, "Can humans really do this?" The teacher looked at them, his expression serious. "Yes, never underestimate them." The human girl left the classroom slowly, her small frame unnoticed once again, but her mind sharp and ready. Today she had proven herself in a small way. Tomorrow she would face a larger challenge. And somewhere in the shadows of school, someone was watching. The events of today would not be forgotten. The unexpected turning point had begun, and it would change everything. The classroom smelled of metal and smoke. The alien students were busy polishing their blades, each proud of the work they had done the previous day. Their weapons shone in the dim light, edges sharp and deadly. Yet, among them, the small human girl sat quietly, a piece of bone in her hands. No one paid her much attention. They had seen her succeed yesterday, yes, but it had been a fluke. They whispered among themselves. Humans were weak, after all. How could a fragile girl match their strength? She didn't care what they thought. She only cared about one thing, perfection. Her fingers moved over the bone, feeling every curve, every tiny ridge. She ran a file slowly across the surface, listening to the faint scraping sound. She could hear the metal blades clashing across the room, feel the vibrations through the table. But her focus never wavered. Point one alien, tall and scaly, leaned over. "Why do you waste time on that useless piece of bone?" he hissed. "It will never cut through steel, never pierce armor. Stop pretending you belong here." The human girl looked at him calmly. Her eyes were sharp. "This is not a piece of bone," she said softly. "It is a weapon." The alien laughed loudly, and others joined. "A weapon?" one sneered. "Ha! We have weapons that can slice through walls. And you, a human, sharpen a bone." Her lips curved into a small, almost invisible smile. "Just watch," she whispered. The teacher walked in, observing silently. He had not expected her to be so determined. There was something different about this human girl. Not strength, not size, but something else. Something subtle, something clever. The class began their exercises. Aliens tested their blades against targets. Metal clanged against metal, sparks flying high into the air. Blades cut cleanly through wood and soft metals. The humans around them watched, amused and skeptical. The human girl stood slowly. The room went quiet, sensing something was about to happen. She held her bone in one hand, light but steady. "Is she going to strike?" whispered one alien student, unsure. She placed the bone on a target. It was a simple piece of wood. She did not swing with force. She did not raise it high. Instead, she moved with precision, striking the target at the perfect angle. The room gasped. The bone sank into the wood, clean and sharp, leaving a line deeper than many of the metal blades had managed. "Impossible," muttered a student. "How can that be?" She repeated the strike. Again perfect, again clean. The bone held strong. The metal blades beside it seemed dull in comparison. The teacher stepped closer, intrigued. "Show me," he said softly. The human girl nodded slightly. She lifted the bone and tested it again. Each strike was precise, controlled. Each movement had purpose. Every detail of the strike calculated. Aliens began whispering nervously. Some of them approached her, examining her weapon. They tapped it lightly with their claws. It did not bend. It did not break. It held perfectly. The human girl smiled faintly. "It is not the material," she said quietly. "It is how you use it." One alien, the tallest in the room, growled. "Humans, you think small things can defeat us? Pathetic." The human girl turned to face him. Her eyes glinted. "Small things that surprise you," she said calmly. The teacher raised a hand. "Enough talk. Today, you will test your weapons in combat exercises. Everyone prepare." The room transformed. Targets were replaced with moving dummies, some with armor, some with shields. Aliens flexed their claws, ready to strike. Confidence was high. Every student believed their weapon was superior. The human girl stepped forward. She did not rush. She did not show fear. Her movements were measured, precise. The bone felt light in her hand, but it carried potential. The first test was simple. Strike the moving target before it could evade. Aliens swung their heavy blades, cutting through metal with ease. One by one, they succeeded, nodding proudly. Then it was her turn. She focused, watching the dummy move. The bone was just a piece of bone, light and simple. Yet, as she struck, the movement of her hand, the angle, the timing, it was perfect. The dummy fell precisely where she intended. The room fell silent. Aliens stared. Some mouths dropped open. Others shook their heads in disbelief. "What? How?" whispered a student. The teacher's eyes widened. "Humans, patience, observation, intelligence," he murmured, almost to himself. "It is more than strength." The human girl stepped back, calm. She did not smile. She did not boast. She only waited, ready for the next challenge. The next exercise was harder. Targets moved faster, some with armored shells. Aliens swung their blades with force, trying to overwhelm the target. Most succeeded, but some failed. Frustration filled the room. The human girl adjusted her grip, measured the distance, and struck. Her bone, simple and small, moved with speed and precision. It pierced the armor at its weak points, leaving the aliens shocked. "Impossible," one alien hissed. "No human should do this." Another whispered. "We underestimated her." The teacher nodded slowly. He understood something many did not. Strength was not only in metal or muscle. Sometimes intelligence and skill could surpass raw power. Humans, he realized, had this potential in abundance. The human girl's fame, or perhaps notoriety, began to spread. Students whispered as she passed, some respectful, some resentful. They watched her closely, tried to learn her secret, but she revealed nothing. She only practiced silently, sharpening her bone, ready for whatever came next. By the end of the day, the aliens had lost a little of their confidence. They had believed that strength alone determined victory. They had believed that humans were weak. Today, both beliefs had been challenged. The teacher finally spoke, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "Remember this lesson. It is not the weapon that defines a wielder. It is the wielder who defines a weapon. Look beyond what is obvious. Think beyond what you know. Even the smallest thing, if used wisely, can change everything." Some aliens nodded, still unsure. Others stared at the human girl with new respect. Some felt fear that their assumptions were wrong. The human girl returned to her seat, her task complete. She did not celebrate. She did not show pride. She only smiled faintly to herself, knowing that this was only the beginning. There would be greater challenges, stronger opponents, and situations where even her cleverness would be tested. Outside the classroom, shadows moved. Figures watched silently, unseen by the students. They had heard of the human girl and her strange weapon. Some were curious, others cautious. They wondered how far she could go, how strong she might become. For now, the human girl sat quietly, sharpening her bone, preparing for the next test. Her calmness, her patience, and her quiet determination had already turned the day into a lesson the aliens would never forget. And somewhere deep in the school, a voice whispered to itself, "This human, she is not like the others. She is different." The strange choice she had made, the bone instead of metal, was already changing everything. Her journey had only begun. The next day, the classroom felt different. The air was thick with tension. Every alien student was talking quietly, their voices low. The human girl walked in calmly, carrying her small bone, her step steady and deliberate. Whispers followed her. She might actually be strong," said one. Another shook its head. "It's just luck. She can't keep this up." The teacher, standing at the front of class, raised his many arms. "Today," he said, "we will test your blades in combat exercises. You will face moving targets and each other. This will determine your skill under pressure. Only those who understand both mind and strength will succeed." The aliens flexed their claws, their tails twitching with excitement. Some smirked at the human girl. "Are you ready to fail again?" one sneered. She said nothing. She only smiled faintly, her eyes sharp. The first exercise began. Targets moved across the room, some small, some armored. Aliens swung their heavy blades, slicing through wood, metal, and even reinforced panels. The sound of clashing metal filled the classroom. Sparks flew in arcs like fireworks. The human girl stepped forward. The bone felt light in her hand. It was small, fragile-looking, but in her grip, it was perfect. She watched the moving target carefully, studying its speed and pattern. With one smooth motion, she struck. The bone landed precisely where she intended, slicing the target cleanly. Another strike, another perfect hit. The room fell silent. The aliens turned to watch her in disbelief. "How? How does she do that?" whispered one. "She's just a human." The teacher stepped closer, watching intently. "Patience," he murmured. "Observation. Strategy. Humans often surprise you." The next round was harder. Targets moved faster, some with small armor plates. Aliens swung their heavy blades with force, some missing their marks. Frustration grew among them. They had expected easy victories, but the human girl's skill had changed their perspective. She adjusted her stance, shifting her weight lightly. Her strikes were faster now, yet still precise. The bone glinted as it cut through the moving targets, leaving clean marks where none expected. Some aliens backed away, unsure if their strength could match hers. Finally, the teacher called for the real test, duels. Each student would face an opponent in combat, testing their skill against a living, moving challenge. The aliens prepared eagerly. The human girl remained calm, her bone in hand, her mind sharp. The first match began. Two alien students faced each other. Their blades clashed, metal ringing sharply. Sparks flew. One was faster, the other stronger. They moved with precision, attacking, blocking, feinting. The human girl watched carefully, noting each movement, each tactic. Then it was her turn. A strong alien student, covered in reinforced armor, stepped forward. Its claws were sharp, its tail coiled for balance. Other students whispered, "She will fail." The human girl held her bone loosely, almost casually. The alien student sneered. "Prepare to be crushed, human," it said. She said nothing. Her eyes followed its movements carefully, noting its stance, its weight, its speed. The teacher's gaze followed her closely, interested in what she might do. The duel began. The alien struck first, swinging its massive blade with force. The human girl dodged lightly, moving with speed and grace. Sparks flew as the blade struck the floor beside her. Another strike came. She blocked it with the bone. The sound was sharp, loud, but the bone did not break. She moved quickly, striking at the alien's weak spots, the gaps in its armor, the soft joints, the places no one else aimed for. The aliens in the room gasped. They had expected her to be crushed within moments. Instead, she was matching the strongest in class, her small weapon striking with deadly accuracy. The duel continued. The alien student grew frustrated, swinging harder, faster. The human girl moved with calm precision, anticipating every move, reacting instantly. She struck with the bone, not to overpower, but to outsmart, to exploit weaknesses. One precise strike hit the alien's armor joint. A crack echoed. The alien staggered. The human girl pressed the advantage, striking again and again, always measured, always perfect. The teacher stepped back, astonished. Incredible humans, he muttered. They think differently. They see patterns we cannot. The duel ended with the alien student defeated, uninjured but stunned. The room was silent. Even the students who had mocked her earlier looked shocked. The human girl simply lowered her bone, calm as ever. A few aliens whispered to each other. She is different, one said. We can't underestimate humans anymore. The next duels followed. Some aliens were fast, some strong, some clever. Each time, the human girl faced them calmly. She moved with speed and intelligence, always watching, always calculating. Each opponent fell before her skill, each one surprised by her precision. By the end of the day, the classroom was filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. The human girl had defeated several of the strongest students, using nothing but a small piece of bone. The teacher called everyone together. Today you have seen a lesson in skill, intelligence, and observation. Strength alone does not win. Patience and precision are often more powerful than brute force. Learn this, and you may become truly skilled warriors. The aliens nodded, still murmuring among themselves. Some avoided looking directly at the human girl, unsure of how to face her again. Others stared with newfound respect. The human girl returned to her seat, her small frame almost hidden among the larger students. She did not celebrate. She did not boast. She only sat quietly, sharpening her bone. Her mind was already on the next challenge. Outside the classroom, shadows moved. Observers had watched the duels. They had taken notes, whispered to one another. The human girl was no longer just a student. She was a phenomenon, someone to watch, someone to test further. The first test had ended, but the real journey was only beginning. Stronger opponents awaited, challenges that would test not just her skill, but her patience, intelligence, and courage. The aliens had learned something important. Humans were not weak, and a small, clever individual could change the outcome of any battle. The human girl looked around the room, her calm eyes scanning her classmates. She knew that tomorrow would be harder, but she was ready. The bone in her hand was more than just a tool. It was a symbol of what humans could achieve when underestimated. And somewhere in the dark corridors of school, someone was taking careful notes, whispering to themselves, "This human, she may be the greatest we have ever seen. We must be ready." The first test had ended, but the true trials were only beginning. The room was tense. Today, the air felt heavier than ever before. Every alien student had gathered, their claws flexing, tails twitching, eyes sharp. Whispers filled the room. She defeated several of the strongest. Can she face the best? The human girl walked in slowly, holding her small bone. Calm as always, steady as always, she knew what awaited her. Today, she would face the strongest student in the class, a giant alien whose strength was unmatched, whose claws could tear through reinforced metal. The teacher's many eyes scanned the room. "Today," he said, his voice echoing slightly, "you will witness true skill. This is no ordinary duel. The top student will face the human girl. Only one may emerge victorious. Begin." The alien student stepped forward. He was massive, scales glinting under the pale light, muscles rippling with power. His claws looked deadly. Other students whispered nervously. Even the ones who had been confident before glanced at each other with fear. The human girl held her bone lightly, almost lazily. She did not show fear. Her eyes scanned the giant alien carefully. Every movement, every posture, every shift in weight was being recorded by her mind. She was studying, calculating, planning. The duel began. The giant struck first, swinging with overwhelming force. The sound of metal scraping against the floor echoed. The human girl dodged lightly, her movement small, almost invisible but precise. Sparks flew as the bone struck a small metal panel the alien had raised defensively. The alien growled in frustration. He swung faster, harder, trying to overwhelm her. Each strike would have crushed anyone else. Each strike, he believed, would end the fight in moments. But the human girl was different. She moved with speed and precision, anticipating each blow. She struck at weak points. The small gaps in armor, the joints in the tail, the soft underbelly that no alien aimed for. Each strike was small but effective, leaving the alien stunned. The classroom was silent. Even the teacher watched closely now, astonished. "She is extraordinary," he muttered. The giant alien roared, swinging in desperation. He was stronger, faster, more powerful. But the human girl was cleverer. She dodged, feinted, and struck at the same time. Her bone glinted with each hit, moving faster than the eye could follow. Other students gasped. "She's outsmarting him," one whispered. A human outsmarting the strongest alien? The duel escalated. The giant strikes were wild now, fueled by frustration and pride. The human girl stayed calm, moving like water, striking with accuracy. Each small hit chipped away at his confidence. Each precise strike showed skill beyond what anyone had imagined. Finally, the alien made a mistake. He overreached, swinging his massive claw too wide. The human girl moved instantly. Her bone struck the soft joint behind his arm, a place he had not defended. The sound echoed through the room, a precise crack. The giant staggered. He had been defeated, not by force, but by intelligence, by precision, by a mind that could see opportunities no one else could. The classroom erupted into murmurs. Some students stared in awe. Others shook their heads, unwilling to believe what they had seen. The teacher stepped forward, his voice loud and clear. "Strength alone does not define victory. Strategy, patience, and observation can overcome raw power. Today, the human girl has shown you the truth." The giant alien, still standing, looked down at her. There was a mix of respect and disbelief in his eyes. "I underestimated you," he admitted. "You are extraordinary." The human girl nodded slightly, calm. "It is not just me," she said softly. "It is anyone who learns to think, to observe, and act wisely." The rest of the class was silent. They had witnessed a turning point. Humans, they realized, were not weak. They were clever, patient, and able to turn the smallest things into powerful tools. The teacher looked at the human girl, his expression serious. "You have changed the way we see humans. Remember this lesson, class. Underestimation is dangerous. Intelligence and creativity are as powerful as any weapon." The human girl returned to her seat, quietly sharpening her bone. She did not celebrate. She did not boast. She only prepared, knowing that the journey was not over. Today had been a turning point, yes, but tomorrow would bring new challenges, stronger opponents, and tests that would push her further. In the shadows of the classroom, someone watched. Eyes glinted. Notes were taken, and a quiet voice whispered, "This human, she is not like the others. We must watch her closely. She may become unstoppable." The students left the room slowly, some whispering, some staring. They had learned a hard truth. Humans were not weak. Even the smallest, seemingly weakest individual could change everything. The human girl looked around once more. She felt calm, confident, and ready. The bone in her hand was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of skill, intelligence, and the quiet power humans held when no one expected it. And somewhere in the halls, plans were being made. The turning point had come, but the real test, the one that would define the human girl's true potential, was still ahead. She had won today. But tomorrow would be even more dangerous. The classroom was quiet after the duels of the previous day. Aliens sat at their tables, their expressions a mix of awe, confusion, and respect. The human girl entered calmly, carrying her small bone. Her movements were measured, her face serene, but her eyes sharp and alert. Whispers spread quickly among the students. She defeated the strongest student again. "Is she even human?" another asked, shaking its head. The teacher, standing at the front, cleared his throat. "Today we reflect. Today we learn what strength truly means." The alien students watched nervously. They had never seen their teacher so serious. Even the strongest students, those who had been bested by the human girl, looked uneasy. They had been confident yesterday, But the lessons they were about to learn ran deeper than skill alone. The human girl placed her bone on the table. She did not speak yet. She only watched, as if observing the room, the students, the teacher, even herself. She understood what the teacher wanted: reflection, understanding, growth. The teacher began slowly, his voice firm but calm. Strength is not always obvious. Power is not only in muscles, claws, or weapons. True strength lies in the mind, in observation, in patience, and in the courage to act differently when everyone else follows a crowd. The students looked at one another, unsure. Many still doubted the words. They had relied on strength and speed, believing that nothing could surpass them. But the human girl's actions had shown otherwise. Humans, the teacher continued, may seem fragile. They may seem weak. But do not be deceived. They see the world differently. They find ways to use what others consider useless. And sometimes, he paused, looking directly at the human girl, they achieve the impossible. A few aliens finally whispered in understanding. She was never just lucky, one said. She was clever. Yes, another nodded. She saw what we could not. The human girl smiled faintly. She did not need to speak. Her actions, her victories, her calm determination had already taught the class everything they needed to know. The teacher then called forward the alien who had been defeated by her in the final duel. Look closely, he said. Notice what she does, how she moves, and how she thinks. Learn from it, and you will grow stronger. The alien approached slowly, studying her movements carefully. He mimicked her stance, her careful positioning, the way she held the bone lightly but firmly. He struck a small target, attempting to replicate her precision. The target fell cleanly. The classroom murmured. Even the strongest students began to pay attention. They realized that strength alone could not win. Intelligence, patience, and observation were just as important. The human girl then lifted her bone again. She held it lightly, almost casually. It is not just a weapon, she said softly, her voice calm but clear. It is how you use it, and it is how you think. The students listened in silence. Even those who had mocked her before were now quiet, reflecting on their own actions, their own assumptions, their own mistakes. The teacher nodded approvingly. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Underestimation is dangerous. Every being has potential. Every challenge can teach you something new. And sometimes the smallest, quietest, most overlooked person can change everything. A few students tried to speak, asking questions, tried to understand how she had achieved such skill. But the human girl only smiled faintly and returned to her seat. She knew that her actions, not her words, would teach the lesson better than any explanation could. As the class ended, the students filed out slowly. Some stared at her with respect, some with lingering disbelief. They had witnessed a turning point, a lesson that will remain in their memories for a long time. Outside the classroom, the shadows moved again. Observers had been watching her since she first arrived. They whispered to each other, "She is unlike any human we have ever seen. Her skill, her patience, her mind, she could surpass anything we know. We must prepare." The human girl stepped into the corridor, bone in hand, ready for the next challenge. She felt calm, confident, and focused. Today had been a lesson for her classmates. But for her, it was preparation. Tomorrow would bring something new, something stronger, something that would test not just her skill, but her courage, her strategy, and her mind. A small smile formed on her lips. She had proven herself, yes, but she also knew that true strength was not in victory alone. True strength was in learning, observing, and always preparing for what was next. As she walked down the hall, a faint echo reached her ears, the sound of whispers, the sound of plotting. Someone, somewhere, had taken notice of her victories. Someone was planning, waiting, and watching. The human girl paused for a moment, turning slightly. Her eyes narrowed, sharp and focused. She could feel the anticipation, the challenge that awaited her. But she was ready. Every strike, every dodge, every observation had brought her to this moment. The lesson had been learned, not just by the aliens, but by everyone who had witnessed her skill. The small, quiet human had proven that intelligence, patience, and courage could surpass brute strength. And somewhere in the shadows, a voice whispered almost to itself, "This human, she may be unstoppable. We must see what she will do next." The corridor stretched ahead, long and empty. The human girl walked forward, her step steady, her mind sharp. The bone in her hand was a symbol, not just of what she had achieved, but of what she could still achieve. And in the quiet of the school, the story was far from over. Challenges awaited, stronger opponents lurked, and adventures were yet to come. The lesson had been learned, but the journey, the true journey, was only beginning. The human girl smiled faintly to herself, stepping into the unknown with confidence. She had faced the strongest, outsmarted the cleverest, and turned the smallest weapon into something powerful. Tomorrow, the world would see even more. Her journey had taught the aliens one lesson: never underestimate a human, and that lesson would echo for a long time. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and support us. It really helps us grow and bring more videos like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.